weekly Coaches News Conference on KLPS TV is brought to you by Hawthorne Bank, a proud sponsor of Liberty School District. At Hawthorne Bank, we understand the importance of strong community in a strong school district. We also understand the importance of strong financial future for our school district's families and for our local businesses. Hawthorne Bank, with you every step. And by Jackson Hewitt. For all your tax needs, personal or business, rely on tax professionals at Jackson Hewitt and Liberty, a full-service tax preparation professional. Jackson Hewitt.
Hello and welcome to the weekly Eagle and Blue Jay football press conference. I'm Coach Clemens, head football coach of Liberty North Eagles. We traveled to Ruskin High School last week for week one of our season, and we had a 42-13 win. There were a lot of positive things in the win, but there are also a lot of things that we need to get better at. I'd like to open it for questions.
First off, can you start off with some of the positives and a few of the negatives?
On the positive side, we were clearly more physical than our opponents, and that's one of our goals, is to be a physical football team, to have a workman's-like attitude, and I think we accomplished that. It was probably the most dominating physical performance we've had since we've been at Liberty North. On the negative side, we shot ourselves in the foot offensively numerous times in the first half with penalties and turnovers that really kept us from scoring as many as we could have early and allowing us to get more kids into the ball game.
Who were some of your key players on Friday night?
Some of the key players on Friday night, well, our offensive player of the game was Trevor Shepard. He graded out the best on the film. Antoine Beavers ran for 180 yards and caught for 70. Brian Sharp threw 3 touchdown passes and threw for 160 yards. So that's on the offensive side. On the defensive side, Myron Powell was our leading tackler and our defensive player of the game. Aaron Wigfall had an outstanding game. Matt Angles, Bryce Shepard. I mean, on defense, the kids were outstanding at every position. We allowed 89 yards of offense for the game, and about 30 of that came on one play. I think there were 10 possessions that we made Ruskin go 3 and out and punt. And so it was a great effort defensively.
Are you doing anything differently to prepare for Truman on Friday?
Are we doing anything differently to prepare for Truman? Truman is a different football team from Ruskin. They run a different defense. They run a spread offense, which is a little bit different than what Ruskin did. So in terms of preparation for our opponent, it is a little bit different in terms of what we do. We do the same thing every week, and we just apply it to what our opponents do each week. So yeah, the preparation is always different, but what we do offensively and defensively will stay the same.
What effect has injuries had on the team this year?
What effect have injuries had on our team this year? I think we added it up and we'd had over 40 practices before the first game. And so, when I first started in the profession, 40 practices would take you to about week 8 of the season. So injuries do become a factor because of that. We lost our second string running back who would have had a lot of varsity carries, and Ryan Sidoti. We lost him for the season due to an ankle injury. Tyler Ripley, who was competing for the quarterback position, we lost him due to an elbow injury. And other young men here and there have gotten hurt and returned. So injuries always have an impact on your season. You pray that kids won't get hurt. It's bad for the young men when they put in all the time and all the effort, and then they get injured and they can't go out and perform. But we've avoided the injury bug for the most part on Friday night, and we think that we'll keep avoiding it.
just getting thrown into there.
How's Brian Sharp doing at quarterback? A sophomore in his first varsity game. He threw the 3 touchdown passes. He threw for 160 yards. I believe he was 9 of 17. We did have 2 drops, so could have been an 11 of 17 game for him. He did a great job, and we expect him to do well. We expect him to continue to get better. He made kind of a desperation interception that he threw in the first half when he was scrambling around and made a poor decision on where to throw the football. But then he came back later and stuck a couple of the best passes I've ever seen a kid stick. We had a 4th and 5. He threw a 10-yard curl route to Paul Silvio that not many high school kids could throw. And he also made an incredible play on a screen pass to Antoine Beavers. So, we told him, during the game that, when you're a sophomore, you make mistakes, and he made a couple there in the first half. But great quarterbacks can make some throws, and he made those throws as well. So, as soon as we can shake the sophomore out of him, we might have a special quarterback there.
Well, what specific improvements can you make for the next week?
What improvements can we make for the next week specifically? I would say that one of our biggest improvements needs to be in terms of penalties. We teach our kids to be aggressive and be risk takers, and because of that, I think Friday night we ran into some situations where we were getting some unnecessary penalties, some clipping downfield, some holding downfield on big offensive plays. We also just had a couple of the simple mistakes of kids, supposed to go right, they go left, and little execution errors like that we probably had 3 or 4 execution errors. We probably had 5 or 6 penalties more than we needed, and a couple turnovers. Special teams, we had a blunder. We allowed a punt return for a touchdown, which was just a case of not running in our lanes and maybe falling asleep a little bit on a fast kid with the football. So yeah, we need to improve our special teams. We need to improve our ball security. We need to improve our execution. Effort was there, though.
Who would you say has stepped up so far this year as the new senior leaders?
Who've stepped up as senior leaders? We've got we don't have an exceptionally large number of seniors in our program, but all of them are leaders and hard workers. We don't really have that vocal look at me kind of leader. We just have the guys that stick their nose to the grindstone and show up and work every day and have great GPAs and behave in school and live good, clean lives. That type of lead by example thing. And I'd hate to start listing names because it's almost the whole senior class.
After a big win like that, is there anything that you need to do, or anything that you will do to make sure the guys don't get ahead of themselves for next week?
Anything to make sure the guys don't get ahead of themselves. I think that of any team I've coached, this team is the most grounded in terms of I don't think that they're going to overlook any opponent. We still don't know, where we stand in the big picture of things. We've got some rankings, some reporters who think that we're going to be pretty good, but we're still trying to figure out if we're good or not. And I think that's just going to be a weekly discovery process for us. Along the way, we're just going to work as hard as we can and try to stay as physical as we possibly can, and continue to be aggressive and go hard. See what happens. Will Thursday games affect our team? We have 2 Thursday games there toward the end of the year. As a football coach, that's pretty much all I've ever known is Thursday games. I worked 10 years at Oak Park High School where 3 teams shared North Kansas City District Stadium, and we always had 1 or 2 Thursday games. Then I worked at Raytown High School, where we shared a stadium with Raytown South, and then we came up to Liberty North, where we share the stadium with Liberty High. So Thursday games aren't unique or unusual to me. I don't mind them. You know, the probably the worst thing about Thursday games is you don't get as many kids out as spectators to the games as you would on a Friday. But other than that, in terms of preparation and things like that, it doesn't really have any negative effects on us.
For next year, are you going to move up a class, or are you going to stay in the same class you were?
Well, we don't know. But for next year, the classifications, we don't know. It depends on how many kids wind up at Liberty North. We are currently in a 2-year cycle, so we'll definitely be Class 4 next year. We're at 1,000 kids right now, which puts us almost 300 kids under the cutoff point. So, really about 280 to 300 kids, and we would be right there on the line between Class 4 and Class 5. So it all depends on how many kids wind up making the move through the boundary line shuffle. So, we're not looking that far ahead right now. We're just coaching our current team and dealing the hand we have. Yep.
What new things do you know about Truman will bring on Friday?
What type of things is Truman going to bring? I'll tell you, their first opponent was Blue Springs South. They moved the ball very well against Blue Springs South. They scored, twice in the first half. It's one of the indicators when you see a big score like they had. I think the final score was 42-20. But you look to see when the opponent scored, to see if it was a game or not. And Truman scored twice in the first half. They moved the ball very well offensively. They struggled to stop Blue Springs South, and so on offense, they've got an outstanding running back. They've got a really good quarterback. Defensively, they're a well-coached football team. Truman really has improved over the last couple of years with the new coaching staff that they have, and their coaching staff's very experienced. Their head coach was the head coach at William Jewell for a little while. Their offensive coordinator was the head coach at Truman State. So their coaches know what they're doing, and you can see that on film. They were 5-5 last year in Class 5 and made the playoffs and lost in the first round of the playoffs. So, they're a legitimate opponent for us, and they're a tough football team that's extremely well coached with a couple of really dangerous kids on offense. So, we've got our work cut out for us, as we do every week. We're not the kind of team that can look past anybody on our schedule. We need to come out ready to go every night. Well, thank you all for coming. I'll turn it over to Coach Freegon.